I'm Jim Tech. You're watching Now Media. With me, Wilbur Turner, president of Advocacy Canada. And we're here to talk about Sean Foyt, the Christian singer, and the City of West Kelowna canceled that, I guess you would call it concert or event here in Kelowna. West Kelowna was supposed to happen on, is it Saturday or Sunday? Sunday, I think, right?
Saturday, the 23rd.
Saturday. There you go. That's how much I've been watching it. And then you had a reaction there, and this is why you're calling in. Your reaction was that Sean Foyt, and this is Ian sent me this, that you had posted on Facebook, which I don't go on to, that Foyt had used hate-filled rhetoric, showed intolerance, and was promoting division. And then Ian asked me to ask you what you exactly mean by that, and is Sean Foyt an extremist, I guess, and if you have some examples of that. I thought that's a multi-part question. How's that?
Yeah. So what is behind that statement is referencing the many times that Sean Foyt has actually basically demonizing the 2S LGBTQI plus community or the queer community, calling the community members demonic and perverted, and in calling anyone who supports them, it's referring to it as perversion. And he has said that people who support Pride are supporting the agenda of the community to pervert children. And he's actually led protests against the community, for example, at Disney. Many of the faith leaders, there's actually a lot of statements online from faith leaders in the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. Calling him out for his rhetoric. And the same here in Kelowna, there was 3 different clergy actually wrote letters calling out his message as being hateful and not wanted here in the community. So yeah, that's kind of what's behind the.
So these are tweets that he put out on social media, kind of thing. Is that what you're saying, or?
Yeah, they're messages that he's put on social media. They're included in some of his messaging that he's made at some of his rallies. And so it's really quite problematic when you have someone who is, has quite a bit of influence. He's got several 100,000 followers on social media, seems to have a pretty big following. And he's pushing this rhetoric, which is, ultimately causes harm to people in the community.
I'd never heard of him before, and do you think all this attention that he's getting or do you think he's actually playing in to get canceled? Because all this attention he's getting has actually become a name here in Canada. Because I'd never heard of him before, and then all of a sudden he's in almost every news headline, and it's not like the concerts aren't canceled, they're moved, right? Because typically everyone that gets canceled actually still takes place in those cities. They just have to move to a different venue. So it's almost like really good PR for him. So do you think sometimes you're maybe just playing right into his hand?
Well, I think there is. It's a fact that he's getting a lot of publicity out of the pushback. I'd never heard of him either before until people were contacting me saying, do you know that he's bringing this concert to West Kelowna? And so I had to do some research on him, and people were sending me information. I think it has given him a lot more attention, and there's good sides to that. There's pros and cons to it. One of the things that my opinion on this is that these things can carry on. Like you mentioned, he'll move to a private venue and have his events, but there's a lot of folks that feel that they shouldn't be held on public property where he's, paying a small fee for a permit and using the publicly, taxpayer-funded lands to promote that kind of a message that he's promoting. So that was the main reason for kind of opposition to the one here in West Kelowna. But I think the bottom line is that, these kind of events can go on. This kind of language can be used, which is definitely harmful to marginalized communities underground. But when it's exposed, I think it needs some light on it. I think people need to know that it's happening and that it can be discussed in the public in a public forum, because otherwise it just carries on and spreads in kind of in the darkness. So
I'm a firm believer in putting sunshine on everything, right? Like, I mean, that's part of the discussion we're having right now. Because
yeah,
you and I wouldn't be having this discussion if it wasn't that the media had given him press all across Canada. I mean, he's made it on every
yeah,
major outlet, and
yeah,
obviously he's played it well as well. You know what I mean? Like every time he kind of turns it into a Canada versus U.S. thing as well. I'm not saying he's right or wrong on that. And then some of the outlets have like labeled him as MAGA, and I don't think that, to me, doesn't have anything to do with it. But I mean, I haven't done a ton of research on the guy, and but will you protest, or will your group protest if he is on private land when he holds this event? Which we haven't heard back that if he's going to hold it or not, but I'm assuming he has in every other city that he's talked about.
yeah. I really don't think there's any point in protesting a private location. What people do on their private property is a different matter than when it's on public property. As much as I, don't really like to see that kind of thing happen, where there is that message is still being promoted, whether it's private or public. Um, I have the view that people are entitled to express their views in private property. Uh, there are churches even here in the Okanagan who promote. They don't use the strong language that he does, but they actually say that being homosexual is a sin, and they call trans people sinners. So that happened right here in our backyard, but it's done in a church. So private property and freedom of religion is at play there. It's part of our laws.
They did fine the church in, I think it was Montreal, $2,500 for holding the event in the church, I believe.
Yes, and that was because the city laws in Montreal require a permit if they're putting on a concert.
Hmm.
So they didn't get a permit. So of course, he's using that as persecution, and they're picking on a church holding a worship service. But he calls his events concerts, and so for whatever reason, the city there decided to their bylaws say one thing and they enforce them.
So there's various civil liberties groups that have condemned the cancellations and warned that this could represent charter violations. Do you think there's anything to that argument? I've interviewed John Carpe on a variety of topics, anything from the fine that this Jeff Evely guy got for walking in the forest, and I don't know. I think I've interviewed John a few times on various issues, and these groups do bring up that these are charter violations.
Well, the charter actually allows for guardrails on speech, and there's freedom of expression does have limitations, and that's been upheld by courts on many occasions, where if speech is going to cause harm, it can be limited. So I think that it falls within that. But the city of West Kelowna didn't their reason for cancellation were not because of the message. It was about safety,
Right? Yeah.
safety concerns, and that was similar to Abbotsford and other places where they said they were just concerned. They didn't have the capacity to deal with it. I know as well that West Bank First Nation approached the city of West Kelowna to talk about the issue, and were dismayed that the event was going ahead, and so they actually revoked the parking usage for their lots, which are adjacent to the park. So there would be no public parking except on streets. And around that area, if you're familiar, there's very little place to park on streets. So, if there was going to be thousands of people there, that was going to create a traffic problem as well as a parking problem and a safety problem. So there's multiple reasons that I think they had for the cancellation.
Sean Foyt puts it out on his social media that this is an attack on Christianity. Do you think that he's justified in saying it's an attack on Christianity, or is it more of what you're saying, that he's actually targeting, groups that are vulnerable?
I really don't see it as an attack on Christianity at all. From my perspective and standpoint, and the board of directors of Advocacy Canada and the people that we're allied and partnered with, we have no problem with folks practicing their religion and their worship. But when they weaponize it for purposes to, cause harm to, like you say, a minority group, it's not okay. And so they should be called out for it. And I know other local politicians have, been making statements in the media about this and calling it persecution, religious persecution. It's against that particular message. It's not about Christianity. And, I grew up in a Christian faith, and I know lots of folks who practice, their faith here, and none of them would agree that he's actually promoting a Christian message. His message is, intertwined with, Christian nationalism. When you said you weren't aware if he was MAGA or not, he's actually performed at the White House for President Trump, and he's been promoting 51st State for Canada. I don't know if that's one of the reasons why he's here, but he's also promoting the idea of church overriding government. So that is part of that kind of messaging that he's promoting as well.
Well, I think Stephen Johnson, the Speaker of the House for the United States, has said that statement as well. He says above in the House there, they do have a banner up there or whatever, I think, or a slogan that says "In God We Trust," and he said that it's in God is first, and then I don't know, I can't remember the order, family or state or what have you, but. And that's. I mean, if you look at a lot of the American symbolism, it's on their dollar, it's on a lot of things, right? So, I mean, I think that's just a traditional American value.
Yeah, and there was media. There was. I
just want to say, I don't think it's a Republican value. It's a traditional American value, because Democratic presidents, Republican presidents have that same thing that's been in the House of Commons or the Congress forever, right?
Yeah, and. You're right, and I think that the difference, though, is that it's where the religion is being mixed in with politics, where it's overriding other people's freedoms and rights. So that's where the Christian nationalism comes in. We've got other groups. Canada.
I mean, again, we go back through history, and I can remember on the aircraft carrier of. And I questioned it back then when George W. Bush stood on the aircraft carrier and said, I can't remember, God was with us or something. I don't know who asked God if they were, showing up on the aircraft carrier, right? But, people put slogans everywhere, right? They try to convince people to go into battle, and usually use God to do that, don't you? Because otherwise, why are you dying, right? So,
yes.
Macklin McCall, the MLA in West Kelowna there, also just put out a tweet today saying the decision by West Kelowna to cancel this concert Saturday sets a dangerous precedent where informed, principle-based decision-making is surrendered to mob rule. And he said public safety is important, but so is protecting fundamental freedoms of British Columbians. Liberty must never be traded on the premise of safety. Any reaction to that?
Well, I think it's interesting that politicians use that, charter expressions, freedom of expression, as a blanket to not address the real issue. So they're not talking about the reason why we're standing up against it. And many, when the City of West Kelowna made their statement, they said that they expected, 1,000 people to come and protest. Well, I had no idea that there would be that many people, but it kind of is an indication of probably the number of people who have emailed the city saying they don't want it to happen. And so you can't, as a politician, you really need to be taking into account why people are so upset about it, not hiding under cover of charter rights where you're not addressing the problem of the message.
Right.
People are free to say whatever they want to say, but there's also an idea of accountability, public accountability for it.
For sure. I mean, democracy is, like allowing people that you don't like to speak, not just people that you do like to speak. But accountability, I think, is paramount. And that's where I think, like on social media, lots of times people hide behind a bunch of bots and different names and stuff like that and can be very vicious, right? That's why I don't go on Facebook. It's just for that simple reason, right? So,
Yeah.
And like I said, I had a hard stop at 2:55. So is there anything else you want to kind of cover off today, Wilbur, at all? Or
Well, like I said, I think it's good that it's out in the open where the sunlight's on it. I'd like to see our politicians, talking about the issue, because it seems like when they side with someone under the charter, they're actually saying it's okay for him to beat down or punch down on a marginalized community. And they've not, whenever they say that, they never address that. So I'd love to see them say, it isn't okay to talk like that. It isn't okay for kids to hear, that might be, questioning their sexual orientation or gender identity, and have a person in power and influence saying that they shouldn't exist or they shouldn't be that way. That's what causes so many problems among youth, and self-harm and suicide and mental health issues. So I think those things need to be addressed by our politicians.
We've asked Sean Foyt's people for an interview several times. And I mean, if we do get an interview, we'll ask them those questions because I think that they deserve to be answered.
Yeah, for sure.
And like you said, shining a light on things is the best way to bring things out into the open, right? So.
Yeah, that's certainly my view.
There you go. Thank you, Wilbur. And I'm sure we'll chat again. And you have yourself a great rest of the day. And we do thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.